Welcome to the Treasury Update podcast presented by Strategic Treasurer, your source for interesting Treasury news, analysis, and insights in your car, at the gym, or wherever you decide to tune in. On this episode of the podcast, special host Meredith Zonsius talks with Craig Jeffery, managing partner of Strategic Treasurer, on being intentional with technology. As part of the Becoming a Treasurer series, they explore how technology is a key tool in all areas of finance, and Treasury is no exception. Listen in as they explore some perspectives and actions you will want to understand and undertake as you continue your journey to becoming a treasurer. Today, we'll be discussing intentionality around technology. We'll explore some perspectives and actions you will want to understand and undertake as you continue your journey to becoming a treasurer. Welcome to the show, Craig.
Thanks, Meredith.
So we took some time off of this series. What drove the decision to expand it again?
Well, yeah, it's definitely been a popular series. We've been asked about this series more than any other ones. People have said this has been really helpful in my career as I'm planning, as I'm moving ahead. And that's a key demographic for the podcast, those who are treasurers, those who are on their way to becoming treasurers, those who want to learn on different topics. And so because there were so many people asking for it, and you also asked that we get that started again, we had to find a way to fit it in. And so we're going to release another few podcasts on this series topic in the near future. So that's why.
Perfect. And so technology is important. We have multiple podcasts and webinars on the topic. What specifically matters to those on their way to becoming a treasurer?
To your question that said, we have multiple podcasts and webinars and written materials on the topic of technology. Why are we adding something like this into Becoming a Treasurer series is really the core of your question there. So, we're not saying that this is something you should avoid listening to the technology topics or what we write or put out on video and other components, but it's so important that you have the right balance and mix on your way to becoming a treasurer. So let me just explain that a little bit. So if you're an existing treasurer, you have to be alert about technology. You have to surround yourself with multiple people who understand technology, give them the support to acquire what's necessary for your group, help make the business case to get the right type of technology for making your organization flexible, achieving the type of insight you need, getting visibility, supporting controls, protecting the organization, managing risk. All of those items you need to know and you need to make the case. So for those who are treasurers, that's kind of their role. They don't need to know necessarily as much as people who are on the path to becoming a treasurer now. So you don't have to be a tech expert, but you need to be aware if you're already a treasurer. You need to still be current. But for those who are on their way to becoming a treasurer, mere awareness or surface level understanding, I do not believe is enough. You, in your journey, you have to make sure you're helping the organization transform with technology, drive out errors and defects, gaining better visibility, leveraging the use of technology. You can be deep in risk, deep in payments, deep in capital markets, and you can make your way to a treasurer without necessarily being deep in technology. But the level of depth and experience and facility with the terms and what they mean to the organization, I don't think it can be ignored. I think the level of understanding has to be increased, has to be more intentional because there's so much changing. I don't think you want to try to compete for the top spot without a certain level of facility with the technology and with a track record of using it. So, hey, I'm really good at FX risk management. I know the debt and capital markets extremely well. I don't know that those alone are going to set you apart from the pack. I think you have to make sure you have the table stakes or the foundational understanding of tech, particularly modern technology. So there's too many changes that have been underway that you have to understand what it is and what matters and how you can help drive it. So I think that's really why it's part of this series now.
So with technology changing so much these days, especially, what advice would you give someone that's kind of starting with a new firm, or, just trying to become more successful and to that next level of where they're at as a treasurer? What kind of advice could you give them to kind of navigate all the technology that's out there? Because, that can be overwhelming.
The barrage of information is kind of like the number of emails you get. You might get 200, 500, 800 emails a day. You have to have a way of triaging that or prioritizing it. These ones I don't even look at. These ones I look at, dismiss, and distribute to someone else. These other ones I need to spend some time and respond because it's a key client or a top personnel issue, or something about the business that I need to spend time on. We need that same type of discipline with regard to some of the technology that's coming about, so that you know what to focus on, what you just need to be aware of, and what you need to focus on. So I'll talk through a couple items and give a little bit of an overview on those. So some of this is alphabet soup, and if you've listened to other podcasts, we've spoken about some of these. But this, again, is to just think through what's happening and what you may want to do. So artificial intelligence / machine learning, that's one. Technology stack. What are the elements of the technology stack that we need to make sure our organization is pursuing? Robotic process automation is another. Application programming interface. This is the concept of open treasury, where we're using APIs to establish connections as opposed to file-based transfers. And then finally, data. And I'm using that as a broad catch-all for big data, the use of business intelligence, analytics, ability to manage those things. So those are just 5 that we'll talk about today. There's more, but in terms of helping you to prioritize these things, as you're thinking about them. So over the next couple of years, AI and machine learning, this is the ability of letting the machines figure out what's going on, what's normal, what's out of standard. And this allows you to do a couple things. You've probably heard, like if you're looking at a payment hub or some, any type of payment platform, you can use AI, particularly machine learning, to identify anything that seems anomalous, because that may be related to fraud. And so that's one thing on the payment side. But you can use machine learning for many things, including it might be a quality control feature to detect and determine things that may fall outside, a quality control band. Or detect different activities. So, and there's certainly others, but this is the idea that these tools can help you run your organization much more cleaner, spot defects or fraud, and keep things more on track, and learn to forecast better, for example. So there's a number of those areas. But the machine learning that is going to be used over the next couple of years in Treasury is primarily going to happen within an application. It's going to happen within your payment hub or your treasury aggregator. It's going to happen within your TMS for forecasting or quality control. It's going to happen in a reconciliation platform or a risk platform. Could happen with receivables for forecasting, et cetera. So the key things here is that the machine learning can really help us to engage with the data more rapidly. It's a tool that will help us correct errors, detect anomalies, and stay on track. So the application is going to be within applications over the next couple of years. May extend out beyond that. So that's one thing to think about. That's what we need to look at for machine learning. And you might have opportunities to bring that in your TMS, or if you're working with something with a cash conversion cycle like receivables, you might be able to use that, or maybe use one of your folks to do more of the work there to get it tuned up for your forecast for receivables. The second area is the tech stack. And we've talked about this before in regular podcasts, the regular series of podcasts, but this is understanding that you need a modern technology stack. And I'm just going to talk about the 5 conceptual layers of that. It's data, connectivity, systems, reporting, and analytics. So data is the data everywhere, and we're going to talk about data as big data, business intelligence. What information do I need? What data do I need? Where is it? How can I get at it so that I can transact properly, do my queries properly, run my reports, do my analysis off of that? Connectivity is everything from, can I leverage APIs to connect inside my organization, to make a connection between different tools I'm looking at to get the information, the rates, the curves, exposures. Can I use that outside the organization? Could be balances, transactions with my bank, could be other parties. So, that's the connectivity piece. And then the systems, these would be the specialized systems, and you want to make sure that those are open architecture, that they can relate one to another system. So the best of breed can become, center of the chessboard. I can connect one system to another because it uses and leverages open technology. I can expand my business process. I can put in workflow process. I can make sure it's consistent from one area to another. So that's the third area, the systems. And then there's reporting and analytics. So this idea of I need to get regular standard data out, and then I need the ability and flexibility to analyze things that are going on real time or as questions emerge that I didn't have time to plot. Where's the data? How do I move it? How do I normalize it? How do I run a report on it and then distribute it to the organization? We need to be thinking about those things from the perspective of, I know I need stuff to be flexible, but I don't know what all the questions I'm going to get. So how do I design that? And that's part of the tech stack, is making sure we account for those unexpected, expected questions. We don't know what they're going to be. We need to make sure we have access to the data so we have an analytical organization. Data is going to continue to explode in terms of volumes, and we need to be able to analyze it.
Okay, what about RPAs?
Yeah, so robotic process automation, these tools, I'm going to summarize that these are the tools that allow you to have a more automated handshake between systems. So one may be grabbing data from a website and then loading into a system, or helping a system-to-system interface that's not built for APIs. So this is a good tool for saving time. It does require more care and feeding than an API once it's up and running, because when you make changes in the underlying system, perhaps your bot will not work as well. But we need to know about the RPAs as an opportunity inside our organization. But there's also opportunities for technology providers who may have some bots that help you set things up or change your structural or referential data in a system. So this helps you streamline the handoffs and become much more straight through processing without necessarily putting everything in a single system.
Excellent. And do you have a couple of others?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned APIs as one of them. So the application programming interface, we have some podcasts on that topic as well, but this is think of it as an interface tool, this little program that does a certain function. So when you open up a page, it goes out and gets data. So you're looking at refreshed data. It may or may not ping that data every, so many minutes or seconds, but when an action happens, it's set up to, hey, I'm going to go to refresh. So now you have current day data on my balances so I can make better decisions. APIs also help you to move stuff from one place to another, see it. It's a faster way of connecting than in many cases, than saying, okay, let's figure out the protocols we're going to communicate with. We'll set up an SFTP site or another type of site. We'll process and test and move forward. So there's a lot of ways where it can be more efficient, and it supports open APIs. But other things just to keep in mind about APIs, you definitely want to read more on it, listen more on it. Sometimes the APIs are resetting their passwords every 3 months, every month, and you still have to update them and maintain them. So there's a lot of developments that are making them faster and better, but there's some implications and some use cases, notably banks, where those things are changed. So APIs help towards open banking, open banking and open treasury. Open treasury means I can put more components together, use the best of breed, and hook them together as part of my technology stack. Now, the last one that I mentioned was data, and I use the term big data, business intelligence. Those are commonly understood terms. There's a tremendous amount of data that's created. It continues to grow. We get more data from our internal systems, from the Internet of Things. We have more monitoring devices. Data is doubling every 2 years. And this is true in Treasury as well. And the idea that there's more data means that it has to be harnessed. So I need data, and bots and machines to help manage that. So I need to think about what data in the universe of Treasury matters, and how will I access that? Is it just interest rate curves, counterparty risk measurements, other calibration, referential, structural data? Is it data about my balances, my transactions, my exposure? So there's tremendous amounts of data that is out there that matters for reporting, that matters for analysis, that matters for monitoring. So when I say that, it's since data is growing so much and expectations are increasing, we need to think about, how do I set up a process where I can leverage massive amounts of data in a way that's thoughtful, intelligent, allowing me to answer those questions that will come, though I may not know what those questions are. So it could be, we have more counterparty exposure than we did before, or that's more important. How will I pull that together to make sure that my counterparties are aligned, that we can look at them with different dimensions, by type of bank, for example, or a holding company that owns, banks who are providers of credit, counterparties on hedges, and maybe a customer in another area. So how can I make sure I have a way of addressing those issues? So there's a lot in the area of data, and you'll hear terms like data lakes, as one example, or different structures for handling data. And you just want to be familiar with them, like things like blobs, data lakes. What do these mean roughly, and how do those work? Because that will be essential for managing data over the next 5 years, being familiar with what's going on, understanding where the value is, and what to do.
Craig, so how does one keep current and stay on top of all this technology?
Well, people have different ways of consuming information, learning, and building skills, but I'd say education, experience, and that willingness to explore. So education is being disciplined, and I think that's part of the title to what we're talking about here, this discipline. I'm going to listen, read, and watch. So I'm going to listen to podcasts. I'm going to read articles related to this tech. I'm going to consume it so that I understand it. I'm going to engage with other people on it. I'm also going to watch videos. They could be YouTube. They could be education things. They could be sessions from what was a webinar is now some type of video. I think it's being very disciplined about making sure you're taking in tech content every month, and probably several hours every month. And it's not a crime to take in several hours every week. You're going to have to commit to it. That's one. The experience is working on projects, and we have several soon to be. I don't know what the schedule is. They may come out before this, but projects where people have worked on projects with machine learning, RPA, etc. This is quite useful for gaining facility with the tools and then understanding the particular application in that environment. So that's the direct experience on projects, in addition to education. Then explore is playing with the technology. Now, there's not much better than playing on a project, but sometimes you want to gain facility where nobody's watching, especially if you're not particularly good at a certain area. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but maybe you want to learn a tool like Python and learn how to create a data frame. You're going to say, what are you talking about? Well, it's a program. You might say, I want to be able to learn some of the methods of how you extract data out of tables, for example, or databases, and put them in a table that can be used for a business intelligence tool. So I want to see how that works, how I can learn some of the fundamentals of that, so that I can be conversant with it, maybe have a little bit of facility with it. Maybe I love it. Maybe I want to explore and do more of that. So I don't know what the trend is, but most people who are on the road to treasure may want to play around with a couple of these tools, like Python, for example, or a business intelligence tool. So this might be building a report with some of the data you've mocked up or some of your real data. Play around with it. Build these reports, slicers, and different ways of looking at the tables, different ways of displaying it. And then seeing if you can truly create a self-service model that you can then ask additional questions. And when you look at what you've done, maybe you've painted yourself into a bit of a corner and you say, how do I design this now to be more useful. Another way of exploring might be with robotic process automation. If you like that, in particular, you may say, I want to identify what work would be best automated or give us the biggest return. Identify that, be part of the team that's working maybe with a group in your company that's helped support robotic process automation on the platform they're choosing. And so identify it, get your hands dirty playing with it. Particularly in a sandbox, you don't kill anything, but learn to play with that. So those are the three: education, experience, directly on projects, and then doing some exploring, which may be in a more isolated, hermetically sealed sandbox that you can make big mistakes and it won't impact anything.
Mm-hmm. That's great advice. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I like technology a lot. You know that, Meredith. I talk about it a lot on the podcast. We write about it. We work with companies. I covered most of what I wanted to say. I would summarize a couple things in terms of, one is know what position you need to be in with regard to technology. Is this going to be one of your key cornerstones as part of your career, or is it going to be something that's just a solid foundation that you'll be able to leverage, to help your organization as you move towards or into a role as treasurer? So I think know what position you want, and then reflect what you're doing in those other categories of education, experience, and exploring. And then whatever that scenario you have, be formal. Write a plan to educate yourself. Be specific. I want to listen to X amount of time, or devote this much time to learning. Here's where I'm going to gather information from. How do I curate the information for myself from other sources? Ask other people, what should I be reading? What should I be watching? What should I be, doing? So I think it's just being formal. Know where you want to be, and have a particular plan to continue to build up those the skills and the knowledge.
You've reached the end of another episode of the Treasury Update podcast. Be sure to follow Strategic Treasurer on LinkedIn. Just search for Strategic Treasurer. This podcast is provided for informational purposes only, and statements made by Strategic Treasurer LLC on this podcast are not intended as legal, business, consulting, or tax advice. For more information, visit and bookmark strategictreasurer.com.